Hey everybody, it's the Trout. This is my 1987 Les Paul Custom. I really like this guitar. I use it on all my recordings and all my live performances. It's made by Gibson. It's been around since the 1800s. They've been providing excellent instruments to musicians for decades. But a lot of people don't know that Gibson also has a nonprofit called Gibson Gives. And I was privileged to be able to interview the executive director, Dendy Jarrett, on this episode of KT and the Trout. Dendy talks about the fact that they've given out thousands of guitars to needy musicians across America. Not only do they give guitars and products, they provide their expertise to help nonprofits become better. So sit back and enjoy this episode because you're going to learn something that not only Gibson makes great guitars, they actually have a big heart too. And that's what Gibson Gives. And that's next on KT and the Trout.
Well, Gibson Foundation as an entity has been around since about 2003, and really did some great things. They had a big push called Guitar Town, and you've probably seen the big fiberglass guitars that lived in Austin and Memphis and Nashville.
Yeah.
Those were part of the Gibson Foundation event. They did a lot of Christie's auctions. They did a lot of great things, but over time, a lot of nonprofits can kind of lose their way. They get wide and spread too thin. And so when JC and the new leadership came in after Gibson emerged from the obstacle course known as bankruptcy.
We all know about that.
Yeah, we met and decided to rebrand Gibson Foundation and to bring some laser focus to it. So we rebranded it as Gibson Gives. And that's been the start. We launched that in July of 2019. And then we proclaimed at that time that we wanted to give 1,000 guitars away over the next 1,000 days. And we're approaching day 970. And we just bumped over 3,500 guitars that we've given away. So we've more than 3.5 times X'd our goal with that.
So where did those guitars go? Or I guess how do you decide who gets the guitar?
Well, Gibson as a mission is to support other nonprofits in the music instrument space that either support through music education. So if you will, think of one of our strategic partners is Save the Music or Notes for Notes. Or music wellness. So think Guitars for Vets or Musicians on Call, Ryan Seacrest Studios. And so those guitars go to support those functions.
Okay. Are they acoustic? Are they all acoustic, I assume? Is that what you give out?
Oh, no. I mean, we give, it really runs the gamut from bass guitars, electric guitars, acoustic guitars. I mean, look, there are a lot of entry level guitars that are needed, but right now, you know, we are challenged just like every other guitar manufacturer that supply is low and demand is high. So what we did is we really leveraged what it had in the previous regime of Gibson had been waste. A lot of this is playable B stock that may have a slight blemish. And in most cases, I can't even, it has to be pointed out to me, but they're 100% playable. Look, most schools, they don't care that there's a slight buff through on the back of the neck or, you know, on the corner of the binding. They don't care because within a week of being in a school, it's going to have some dent and dings on it anyway.
That's true, yeah.
So we diverted what had been being crushed or destroyed and rerouted those back into our philanthropic endeavors here.
Those guitars you're giving out, they may have a little blemish on, but they still either have Gibson or Epiphone or Kramer. You know, it has names. I mean, Kramer 40 years ago, nobody knew who they were. And just one guy changed that business. So, and then you got your Gibson Hummingbird and all these big iconic guitars that people have had for years. And maybe a youth doesn't understand it or somebody gets it, but man, if I got a free Gibson guitar when I was a kid or whatever age it is, I'm starting out with the right product. Because a lot of times when you start out as a new player, you don't well, the parents go buy a guitar and then they get a guitar that's not very nice, and then they get tired of it because the strings are too high and all that stuff goes into it. But you've already given out that many guitars. That is amazing. Now, are they all of them in the United States? Do you support? Is that the nonprofit you support here?
Well, as you know, probably getting nonprofit status in other countries, every single country, and in some cases, different provinces of countries require different legal loopholes and
Okay.
criteria. So what we did is we've partnered with some wonderful organizations that already have a foothold in other countries. And so we support out of the country, using those strategic partners.
Well, tell me a little bit about you. You went to work for them. The question is why?
Ironically, I'm not a guitarist, I'm a drummer.
Right.
And I was recruited by Gibson back in 1992. They owned or were the distributor of a new fledgling brand called Mapex. And I
Actually, I do remember that. I do
yeah,
remember
and
that.
I
Yeah.
brought Mapex to the marketplace. And then we bought Slingerland
Yep.
and kind of revived Slingerland under the Nashville Studio King era of Slingerland. And I ran that. And then we parted ways, and I spent years at Guitar Center in the leadership there, and then came back to Gibson in 2014. At the time, I was running an online community called Harmony Central, which at one time was one of the biggest online forums for musicians in the world.
Mm.
And just the spirit of what I did really parlayed well into what I do now for Gibson Gives.
And so, as the director, and I understand because I used to be a director of a nonprofit, but what's your job? Do you have, and I don't mean that like, do you have a staff that you work with? You got, and I said this earlier, you got the name brand behind you, but you have a limit. You can't just go out and write checks all day long because, you got it. Do you as a nonprofit, do you go out and do people donate? Do you ask people to donate to you guys? Do you go out and solicit funding?
We do. The great thing about Gibson Gives is Gibson Brands underwrites all of the operating costs. So 100% of the donations that come into Gibson Gives go back out to the communities we support. So that takes a lot of the burden off of me from a operational standpoint.
Right.
But we still do solicit funding. For the first 2 years that Gibson Gives existed, since 2019, guitars were our currency. And of course, as you know, we all got straddled with COVID
Yep.
during that time. So, we also provided a lot of thought leadership to nonprofits who had historically relied on being in person to facilitate what they did, take notes for notes. For instance, they're established in Boys and Girls Clubs as a music education resource. And suddenly Boys and Girls Clubs all closed. And so how do you pivot? And so
Yeah.
we provided thought leadership to a lot of nonprofits to help them move in a direction where they could still sustain themselves. And then now, trying to come up with hybrid versions of utilizing what they came up with and then marrying it to, getting back to some new semblance of normal.
When you got somebody of your skill set and of your corporation to go out and help them, that's something that they need. And there's more people that need that than probably you can even have time to do it. But that's a big deal because you're not just saying here's some guitars, here's some strings. Here we want to improve your organization. Dendy, that's a big deal. It really is.
Well, look, I think that also there's power in the relationships that we have as Gibson with artists.
Right.
It's not uncommon for us to donate a $400 maximum price Epiphone acoustic, have an artist sign it, and that $400 unlock a $30,000 donation because somebody wants that guitar with somebody's signature on it.
Absolutely.
And so, we can leverage that relationship that we have with artists to really maximize the impact that we have in the industry.
Yeah, because used to work with a big company, national company, and you walked in and there was guitars on their wall. And because the CEO was not a guitar player, he just wanted guitars with, somebody signed him. He just wanted to
Right.
put it up there.
So
Of
they've
course,
become art.
yeah, they're art. So the first thing I do is go up and look and see who signed it. And of course, second thing is, well, first thing I look at, see how good the guitar is. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is who signed this thing.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about it. And reading about your organization, and you were talking about Ryan Seacrest, I had no idea that he had this studio thing and all this, because another person that gets involved. And like you said, I would imagine with the people that you support financially too, that they endorse your product, they probably have no problem coming in and doing that stuff. I mean, here's a guitar, sign it for me. What's it going to go for? I would think that most of them would go, yeah, okay, fine. Because they're helping out the community too.
Absolutely. And they want to help. I mean, I find musicians are generally good-hearted people,
Right.
and they really want to help. And we're select about what we do. I mean, you made the point that there are so many nonprofits. There are hundreds of thousands of them, and
Yep.
all of them great causes. But what we did with Gibson Gives is to really narrow our focus so that we knew what our swim lane was. And it doesn't mean that you don't divert. I mean, look, in 2020 in March, right before COVID hit, we had a massive tornado come through downtown Nashville, literally 2 blocks from my house.
Mm.
And 6 a.m. the next morning, JC, the CEO at Gibson, was on the phone with me and said, DJ, what are we going to do? He's like, I feel like we got to help. And quickly we came together and created the Play It Forward program. And so if you could prove that you lost a guitar in the tornado, we replaced your guitar. We didn't care what brand.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
And we ended up giving away about 312 guitars to legitimate losses due to the tornadoes here in Tennessee.
And the sad thing for me is I didn't know that. And I heard about Play It Forward a little bit, but Gibson, as you know, historically has gone through a lot of financial difficulties. There's a lot of discussion, are the guitars as good as they used to be? They've gone through all this, everything. And it appears now that you guys have stabilized out. And the good thing about it is that's the kind of thing that people don't hear about. They hear about, oh, look, I got a binding. Look at this Gibson. These guitars are not very good. This binding scratched when I got it. I got to send it back. Yeah. And it's like, okay, take a breath, people.
Well, look, they're handmade. They're roughly about 800 sets of hands that touch a guitar as it goes down
amazing, isn't it?
The build line. And our crafteries are set up to really minimize imperfections.
Sure.
But when you build something by hand, you're going to have that. It's just the nature of being hand built.
But that's why people like them. I mean, when people, we were rehearsing one time and a friend of mine played guitar and he says, can I try your guitar? Now he was an acoustic guy. I think he plays a Taylor. He picked up my 87 and goes, oh my gosh, this is really a good guitar. But that isn't, because it's just one of those things. It came down perfect for me and I love it. And I'm not a guy that's going to mess with it and put a bunch of different, I'm a humbucking guy. I like everything original, but the point is the next one down the line could be slightly different because it's handmade. Yeah. I mean, that's that. And when I read the history of Gibson, which goes back into the 1800s, how many people didn't even say that? I mean, you work for a company that's that old that's still doing what they want to do, which is make musical instruments. And
yeah. I'm proud to be a part of this. I mean, try to name big American-made companies that exist anymore. I mean, probably 2 hands and you've run out of the list. And so I'm really proud to be a part of the organization. I mean, and you asked earlier about, staff. I mean, we have a cultural influence department led by Beth Height, which encompasses, Gibson Gives all the way to entertainment relations or artist relations, as most people know it. And, what we decided to do when we relaunched Gibson Gives is we didn't want it to just be a feel good checkbox that you can find a lot of times. We have really worked hard over the last 3 years to weave giving into every aspect of what we do at Gibson. So even if we sit down to negotiate a signature product for an artist, giving is incorporated in that.
Oh, wow.
Even if
Okay.
it's a small percentage,
Yeah.
we bake in giving into all those contracts now. And so and it really is starting to show. Our CEO JC leans that way. His heart's that way. Cesar, our CMO, is that way as well. And so, and brand president. So, it's become, in every discussion we have about something, whether it's marketing or product development or negotiating signature deals, Gibson Gives is really at the forefront of the discussion. And that's great. It's a great thing. It's a great feeling to know that you work for a company that really cares and wants to be known for giving back in the music instrument community.
Well, and I agree 100% with you. And to me, the iconic name gives you a lot of leverage with people, obviously, to a certain degree. But if you talk to a younger person, they may not even know what a Fender or Gibson is. I sometimes wonder, because there's so many different manufacturers out there now. And when I grew up and I played, I couldn't afford it. But then when I could afford it, people were like, oh my gosh, you got, that's kind of the way it is.
Yeah. I can remember going to NAMM shows for 30 years now and coming back and going, what do people do with all these guitars? They must have guitar shredders in the backyard or something. Because
the reason I even started wanting to talk to people like you is people don't know about it. As musicians don't really realize it. And I think probably more people need to know about it. And it's not braggadocious. It's just that you want to help the ability for people to have music in their lives. And when I talk to people in different parts of the world, the standard is music is music. It may sound different, but that's what drives people, is music.
I think music really, if you imagine for a minute a world without music, I mean, that's a scary thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, it is.
I have the innate ability, when I hear a song, I can name the date and the place that I first heard it.
Or that
and
song.
My wife thinks I'm a savant that way, but I relate everything back to music from an experiential part of my life. And, music was everything to me. The music community was everything to me, and musicians are my people. And so to be able to be in a position now to effectively give away guitars or grant money to support music education or music wellness, it's a dream come true for me, truly. I'm humbled by it.
Oh yeah.
I don't think it's something to brag about. It's something to be proud of, and it's something to I mean, it's so important. I mean, when you talk about coping with PTSD, for instance, with Guitars for Vets, I think the latest stat was 22 veterans a day commit
that's
suicide.
22 kill or something. That's the nonprofit.
And like, seriously, there are options. And one of the other programs that we started at Gibson Gives that I'm really proud of, we managed the program and we started the program, is our Tempo program. Tempo is training and empowering musicians to prevent overdose, and you can find it at tempomission.org. And we have 14 other nonprofits that are like-minded, who've come together and lock arms, and we're adding new nonprofits in that space monthly. And we provide training on overdose awareness, opioid addiction, and you can take a test. And if you're at one of our facilities, like our Gibson showrooms or Music Cares locations, a lot of music festivals where we will be representing. You can take a test, show the attendant your confirmation email, and walk away with a single dose vial of naloxone and be armed to save a musician's life. And just this month, I got a call from a DJ in Asheville, North Carolina, who had been exposed to the Tempo program, got a vial of naloxone, and emailed me to say, dude, I saved a life this week because I had the Narcan that I'd gotten through the Tempo program in my pocket and came across a guy who was overdosing. And that makes it worth everything to me right there.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the things, that stories that don't get out about, anything like you guys do. I had no idea about that program. Sometimes you're in the right place at the right time. Yeah. And with that DJ, he happened to be in the right place at the right time to be able to save that one person.
Well, and look, musicians are surrounded by the potential for making bad choices.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's around us just by nature of the industry. And so we're not like the narc cops that are calling. We're just saying, hey, be aware that these are the risks. And here's something that could possibly save one of your bandmates' lives. And so our goal is to be able to have the Tempo program in studios, tour bus locations, lighting venues, where one of our partners is the Roadie Advocacy Group, also known as the Clinic. And so they support, all the people who allow musicians to do their job. And so that's one of the things that we do. And then, one of our other great partners is Music Cares. And you talk about suicide, and, so for musicians, there are a lot of resources available through Music Cares for therapy and recovery, to, and even just talking to somebody about things that bother you so that you don't want to take your life, And,
it's interesting.
Bringing a focus back around to playing music as an outlet, as a way.
That's why you do it. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, I think people don't realize just how prolific the opioid epidemic is. I mean, more people died from opioid overdose last year than did from COVID.
That's amazing. Think about that. That's a huge number.
Yeah. And so it's something that's very close to our heart here, and something that we want to make people aware of. And while we serve just the musician space, that the opioid problem goes well beyond musicians.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And that's great that you guys can be able to do that. And people, and you were mentioning it a while ago, as a musician, you're a member of the club. You're a club member. I'm a club member. Everybody you talk to is a club member. And once you're in the club, the fact that I like it is you and I can talk about it. I can go talk to another guitar player. I can talk to a symphony person. It doesn't matter. We're still in the club, and we can still talk about the music business or industry or whatever that moves us.
Yeah.
And I like being in that club because I've been in it a long time.
I like the fact that, I may be able to go to Italy and not communicate with somebody by speaking their language, but I can sit down and make music with them in a heartbeat.
Yep.
And have a musical discussion with them, and we all know what we're talking about. This is always the challenge, especially when we look in the music education area. Kids have really gotten so used to this.
Absolutely.
That
mine's right here too. So.
Putting a guitar and creating a tactile experience is so important, especially because studies are now showing that this, while being a great tool, also shortens your attention span. Yep. And so putting a tactile guitar in somebody's hand really starts training them to stick with something longer than 30 seconds.
Yep.
And then on to the next scroll, So as we focus on music education, that is a big part of the awareness, is, making sure that we don't lose touch with that tactile experience. Because let's face it, uh, becoming a musician improves your mathematics skills, your leadership skills, your communication skills, your, you
Yeah.
know, your patience skills. I mean, there are just so many things that it brings to you as a human being and unlocks so much inside of you that, it's important that we keep a focus on music education as we move
Well,
forward. That's why I get frustrated when I hear about music education being cut in school budgets. I'm like, really? That's the
yeah.
last thing that should be cut from a school
Yeah,
budget.
and I know that, and I mean, I'm in Texas, so as I joke, I said we built a football field and to build a school around the football field in Texas. That's kind of what it,
And you
it's
can't
like,
look, you can't knock sports because I mean, without it, we wouldn't have had the halftime band show, and that
yeah,
I wouldn't have been in music because that really I was the proverbial band geek growing
yeah.
up. You know,
And at the end of the day, there is an accomplishment feeling, obviously, when you perform. And I have a friend of mine who lives in Chattanooga, and he saw me, and he's younger than me, but I think he just went back. He went to Chattanooga, started into the band, you know, they just play around, but the accomplishment's there. It makes you feel great. You get better. And I told him, I said, every time you perform, you get better because people are, even if it's for free, and they do a lot of nonprofit gigs, you still don't want to mess up. So you get better at it. And then you have the camaraderie that people don't understand, in a band. There's something
so
about
look, but it's team building.
it's team building.
You learn to communicate and
Yeah.
compromise and overcome and adapt. I mean, there's just so many skill sets that it unlocks.
And I think I saw one time about, and I'm a lead guitar player, but how it improves your mental capacity to think better, faster, or whatever, because when I play, I don't think about it. I just know, oh, what key are we in? Okay, good. And the brain does the rest of the stuff. It's one of those things that I've done it for so many years, but I still, the other thing great thing about music is you always can get better. I don't care who you are, you can always learn stuff. And watching young people are trying to, and the other thing that I try to tell people, younger people, is study the history of music, because a lot of people don't understand it. And let me ask you a question, because this involves Gibson. And you mentioned something earlier about selling, but has the guitars gone back up? People started buying guitars. I understand there for a while because everybody goes synthesizer and they're into beats and all that. How's the business doing as far as people buying guitars?
Oh, you know, it's been a crazy 2 years. I mean, the
Right.
blessing that came out of COVID was there's been a renaissance in guitar playing that we haven't seen since the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan.
Oh, wow.
I think Gibson last year had a record year uh, in 2020 and 21, as did everybody else. Fender had a
Yeah.
record year, Taylor had
Yeah.
a record year, Martin. I mean, we can't keep up with production, can't keep up with the demand right now.
And is that because of the supply of product? Is that part of it? I mean, it's obviously you just got so many you can't place the orders fast enough, but are you having supply issues like so many other people are?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
everybody. I
Yeah.
mean, and we're talking like, who knew there's an international shortage
Yeah.
of paint right now. I mean, unless you
Paint,
want white, you know.
which is made of tight, it's made out of, I know it's one particular mine product that they have to use to make white paint.
Yeah, yeah.
It's,
So I mean, that is an ongoing challenge, but I think it's just the demand. People were home, they had a little more time on their hands, and everybody who ever thought they wanted to play guitar decided that this was the time. And we're grateful for that, because the music industry needed that right now.
yeah.
Society needed that. I mean, I'm a firm believer in, make music, not war. I think
Yeah.
that, in
Yeah.
guitars over guns, I believe in the Second Amendment rights and all that, but I would much rather see somebody carrying a guitar down the street, right? So,
Well,
you
100%,
know,
100% right. In fact, I mentioned it to somebody the other day when I was interviewing him. I said, if we could all just play music, we'd all be happier than,
that's right.
shooting each other. And I think that's part of it. And the other thing, I have people come up to me when I perform, and they come up to me because of my age. They go, "I used to be a musician." Like, "Oh, really?" "Yeah, I used to play fill in the blank, trumpet or guitar." "Why don't you play anymore?" "Oh, I'm old." And I'm going, "You're still alive, you
Yeah,
know.
never too
You're
old.
never
And
too old."
I always think that it once a musician, always a musician.
Yeah,
It's there with you. You just are kind of suppressing it. Well, look, you ask about musicians and the guitar marketplace, and what I find is that musicians are giving people.
yeah,
Music softens a soul, and I think that there's so many things in life right now that can make you hard,
mm,
that it's good to be able to have something that's an outlet that allows you to express yourself, allows your heart to soften a little bit, and to be open and caring about your fellow human being. And I think being a musician lends itself to that. So, now uh, we can leverage that fact that, there's so many new musicians to also affect change. And
yeah.
that's part of what we are trying to do with Gibson Gives, is just create change, uh, and expose more people to being a musician and to music in general.
Yeah, and I think it's a great. I'm glad you guys are doing it. I hope that we can continue to expand it for you guys, let more people know about it, and that's really the important thing for me.
Yeah.
Is
And
you
and
never.
and there are parts of Gibson Gives that you should also be aware of. And we have Epiphone Empowered,
Yeah, I saw
which
that. Yeah.
Epiphone's part. There's KRK Cares. There's Mesa Mission with Mesa Boogie. There's Kramer Cares. So we've got, a lot of programs that represent the spirit of the brands that we own. And, we're doing great things with those programs. Uh, you know, I think we sat down this week and calculated up that we've unlocked, with 3,500 guitars and roughly $1 million in giving, we've unlocked $54 million in enabled monies raised
Oh,
through that
wow, that's
last 3
big.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's big. Well, and it's kind of like leveraging money.
Yeah.
In a way, you go to the bank and you say, "I need to leverage, 10 times." You guys are doing that with your product, the people you know. And if you continue to, which you will, you continue to improve on people's ability to play music. To me, it's just a warmth that I've told people as I perform, and if it works well and the band's doing well, people are accepting you, enjoying you. There's nothing better than that. You get that feeling. And I still remember the first time that I did three-part harmony with the band. We all went, "Look, we're doing three-part harmony." I mean, it's those little things that you remember that change it. But then when you're out performing and people like it, and a friend of mine's an illusionist, and I said, I just wish people could have that same feeling that I get when the crowd's getting, enjoying you. And the worst thing about it is it's short. You rehearse, you rehearse, you rehearse, and then you go up and play, and it's over. And you're like, "We're on the last song already?" And that's the hardest part about it for me. Is, yeah,
Yeah.
we're done.
And it creates a euphoric high, really, that,
Oh yeah.
you know, I think the largest crowd I ever performed in front of was 200,000. And
Wow.
it just makes such a difference.
I can't imagine doing that. I
Yeah.
mean, well, you're just like a piece of sand on the front, with
Yeah.
all these people. And people don't understand when you play out or you do it on stage, you can't see anybody because when the lights come on, especially you're playing, I don't know if that gig was outside. It probably was, had to be outside with
Was, yeah,
200,000. So was it during the day or in the evening?
both. Yeah.
Okay. So when they
Yeah.
turn lights on, you can't see
Huge,
past it.
yeah, huge country music festival.
Ah, and that's the other thing is after it's so many feet, you can't see anybody. So it's just a big crowd.
Oh, it was just a sea of heads, really.
Well, and then if they like you, it's like, oh my. I mean, I can't imagine with 200,000 people all, doing the same thing. And that's,
But it leaves you feeling so good. I mean,
oh,
you
absolutely.
music, just like giving, uh, impacts people in so many different ways.
Yeah, and it's and kind of the music industry is kind of all messed up now because of all the things going on as far as payments and all that stuff. But it's why everybody goes out on tour because they can't got to go on tour. And I still think it's funny that people like the Stones still are performing. How much money do they need? They don't need any money. And the funniest thing I heard recently, because Keith was got his band Expensive Winos back together to do something up in New York City, and they asked him, "Are you and Mick ever going to sell your catalog?" And I'm paraphrasing, but he said, "Maybe when we get older."
But
said,
they perform because they love it,
"Oh,
man.
that's what I'm
They
going to say. That's exactly the point.
yeah.
They love
It's
it."
yeah, they don't have to do that.
No,
They could be on coast now.
yeah, they don't have to do it. And but there's also the other side of that. Is there sometimes when you figure you listen to people, I'm not talking about Stones, but other people, you're going, okay, they need to stop now. They kind of reach, it's kind of
Yeah.
like you're gone past your expiration date. We know you're good. You're never going to sound like you did before. So that's the other thing about getting old. So um, I just want to wrap this up and tell you thanks again.
And I think the most important thing, for your listeners to take away is that they can check us out at gibsongives.org.
Okay.
And there's a donate now button if they want to donate, but I'm not I'm not preaching here, just it's there if they will. And if they know an organization that could benefit, another nonprofit that could benefit uh, through the use of guitars, there's a request a donation button that'll take you
Okay.
to our submittable portal where they can request product as well.
And I did see that, and of course we always put the links and everything on the YouTube video, and we'll put some things out there. But that was kind of important for me too, because normally it's if when you see organizations like you and you go, I could really benefit from this, but I'm just a small nonprofit. You have a site there that you could just click on, and then people look at it and see, that's really that's cool too, because that opens it up to everybody instead of just the bigger people too.
I think giving to bigger causes, like I've mentioned,
Right.
Kids Rock is great because they're spread very far across the country, but there are little small nonprofits that support music education in small towns all across America, and we've provided guitars for lots of them over the last 3 years, and they make a huge impact in their community. And if you really make a study of musicians who've made it, so to speak, a lot of them come from little, small, nobody
Yeah.
places. And
Yeah.
look, I grew up in a little town called Peak, South Carolina, has a population of 88 still to this
Oh
day.
my gosh.
We don't even have a stoplight. We have a stop sign. So, I mean, it just goes to show, people who can affect change can come from a lot of different small places.
I think that's the other thing I've always loved about America, because you can come from a small town and still have a huge impact on people. Because if you want to get there, you can get there if you try hard enough. So you're in Nashville, is that where you are now?
I am, yeah.
Okay. And the factory is where?
Well, we have two factories in Nashville. One is the USA Gibson factory,
Okay.
where they make all the electric and semi-hollow body guitars. And then there's the custom shop,
Yeah.
which it's like Candyland in there, right?
Oh yeah.
Where we have all of our custom product, and the Tom Murphy lab is there. And then, of course, the garage is downtown, which if you ever make it to Nashville, please stop by the Gibson garage. It is the Willy Wonka factory of the guitar world.
See,
And
I just want to spend money, and it's like, yeah.
and then we make our acoustics in Montana, in Bozeman, Montana, and we just expanded that location, doubling our production capacity. They just opened the doors to that expanded location last week, I think.
Thanks for your time, brother.
Hey,
Appreciate it.
Rick, I really appreciate you having me on today, and allowing me the opportunity to just tell people about what we're doing. It's so important. I think good begots good,
Yep.
and this is an important mission for me and for Gibson.